player pool. I've got a couple games I'm going to be breaking down for the Sunday slate for DraftKings lineups and also some DraftKings Showdown in this episode. So you're going to want to stick around for the whole thing. And we have a game that includes a slate that includes a game that could be lower scoring than the field is projecting it to be. And I'm going to get into it right after this. What's up, guys? Simon Edwards at PumaCom here with Heat Seeker Sports, and you're watching Player Pool. Going to be breaking down the two-game slate as well as Showdown for the other for both games in this one. So I'm going to have kind of a 3-in-1 in this episode. So if you're looking for Showdown content, you're at the right place too. Before I get into that, make sure to hit the like button, get me to 30 likes so I can put my picks in the comment section as the day goes on, and make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm looking for 1,600 subscribers, and I need to get there before the end of this week. So, I mean, today. So I need 30 more subscribers. So if you guys can help me get that, definitely appreciate it. You want to subscribe for when these videos pop up. They pop up at random times due to my schedule. So I don't really have a set schedule for when I release these videos. And this one is being recorded at 11 a.m. on Sunday morning. So we got a couple hours before the games start. So I'm going to get into it now. The first game is going to be probably the lower scoring game of the two. It's the Eagles versus the Rams. And at least that's where the Vegas is projecting these games to be kind of the lower scoring of the two games. And let me get a total here for you guys. As far as the total right now, I'm seeing 42.5 in this one with the Eagles as 6.5 favorites, which makes a lot of sense. The Rams, struggled for the most part against this style of defense with Philadelphia. The Matthew Stafford was not great against this style of defense, and they played each other already this season, so this is also a rematch on top of it. Earlier in the season, when they played each other, let's see, Matthew Stafford had 19.22 DraftKings points. Still not bad, like considering his salary is $5,200 and he's going to be the lowest owned guy on the slate. So still a good performance from Matthew Stafford for his salary. He ended up throwing 2 touchdowns in that game, and they lost the game 37-20. So a lot of that was probably garbage time. But still, the fantasy points, we don't discriminate against garbage time for our fantasy points. And 19 points would be a pretty good performance out of Matthew Stafford today. As far as injuries, let's take a look at injuries before we dig into these games too much. Tab here. The Eagles have the biggest injury on this game is going to be Nakobe Dean, and that's going to improve the situation for Kyren Williams. Nakobe Dean, I went over it on the show yesterday. He has I think like an 85 PFF score against defending the run. So Nakobe Dean is a very good run blocker, and he's going to be out in this one. Other than that, we got a few other guys like on the Eagles defense that are on IR or that have been out for a majority of the season. On the offensive situation, not looking at anything too significant there. Let's switch over to the Rams. Rams, we're looking at Blake Corum's on IR. I believe he broke his arm. We're looking at a few guys that are questionable on the offensive line. The defense, nothing too major. The situation with the Rams, their defense has been playing really well. They played really well last week in the game against Minnesota. They were stacking Sam Darnold like crazy last week, and they were just all over the Minnesota Vikings last week. And they look like a top defense in the league, even though that's not necessarily how they've been playing throughout the season. If we're looking at their points allowed, they've allowed 22 DraftKings points a game to the running back position, and that could be a little bit deceptive because they're allowing one of the lowest yards per attempt to running backs. But still, regardless, 22 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. It's going to be a cold day in Philly. I believe it's a potential for snow in Philly today. So it's going to be not the best conditions for passing the ball or for kicks, but running the ball is going to be popular today, I think, in Philly and in both, to be honest, because it's not going to be any warmer over in Baltimore either, or over in Buffalo either. Buffalo is going to be cold and potential for snow as well. So we got a couple games here that are going to be not optimal playing conditions. Outdoors, we're not getting the same cushy environment that we got with that game last night between the Lions and the Commanders. We're going to have a much more difficult time to figure out fantasy points in this one. And as far as points allowed on the Philly side, Philly's defense has been one of the best defenses in the league. They're only allowing 16.8 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. But like I said, Nakobe Dean being out, I think that could be a sneaky spot for us to have Kyren Williams in our lineups. And they're only giving up 15.7 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position, only 9.5 to the tight end position. Basically, they're strong across the board. They're middling against the wide receivers, and they're targeted more in the slot. Teams have been targeting them at a 34% clip against the slot. They were a team that we were targeting for slot receivers early in the season, but they ended up making some adjustments on their defense and have become like way better at defending slot receivers as the season's gone on. And now they're not really a target for slot receivers anymore, but teams are still targeting them at a 34% rate in the slot. So that's going to be probably the main spot that we would want to target any receivers on, even though we got Puka Nacua on the team. Puka Nacua does run 33% of his routes in the slot, though, so he is still going to be exposed to probably the better part of that matchup against Philly. On the Philly side, the Rams have been targeted the most at the wideout spot, 41.6% at the wideout spot. They've only been targeted 28% in the slot. They've only allowed 9 DraftKings points a game to slot receivers. So, we have something shaping up where maybe we're looking more at the wideout with AJ Brown as opposed to Devontae Smith, and the Rams are also targeted heavily at tight end positions, so that's going to leave Goddard in a good spot too. So we got some pretty clear, I think, matchup advantages in this game. I think the running backs are in play, and I think Dallas Goedert is in play as well. Those are the main interests that I would have in this game as far as a matchup perspective. Puka Nacua, obviously, he's a stud. He's probably the best wide receiver on the slate this week, and he hasn't been too outstanding lately. He's gotten one game over 20 DraftKings points in the last 4 weeks. But we've seen his 44-point upside. We've seen him score all these 20 plus DraftKings points games. But the scores recently for the Rams have not been all that high either. We're looking at a 13-9, 19-9, 12-9. That's as their defense has gotten better. But they've also played some pretty scrubby teams. San Francisco, the Jets, the Cardinals, and then Minnesota is the big game that they played. But Sam Darnold had turned to a pumpkin at that point, and Puka Nacua was not needed that much in that game. He only had 10 DraftKings points. So, just goes to show what Nakua's upside and his downside is on this potential slate. With the Baltimore-Buffalo game, we're not looking at much better situation in Baltimore versus Buffalo, because that game is projected to be a high-scoring game, and the spread in that one, we're looking at a total of, we're looking at a total of 51.5 points, and we're looking at a spread of 1.5 points, with Buffalo as the underdogs in this one. They're playing in Buffalo in this game. This is going to be an interesting one, because I think it's another rematch, first of all, but I think that it's a game that could go way under that total. 51.5 points seems a little high, considering these defenses have, more so on the Ravens side, the defense has been playing well. Josh Allen doesn't play that great against his style of defense, but it's Josh Allen. He can be matchup proof if he wants to be. And the Ravens should have a little bit more difficulty against the Bills than they did the last time that they played. We're talking about a situation where the linebackers are all healthy on the Bills this week, and that should help them out with defending the run a little bit, and make Baltimore kind of suppress their potential upside as well. So we're looking at a couple teams in bad weather, couple games in bad weather. The Bills Ravens are the ones that I think are going to be impacted more. I think with scoring output, I think it's going to be a lower scoring game than is projected by Vegas. I think the Rams Eagles, I think that could be, I won't say a blowout by Philly, but I think Philly can win that one pretty handily and turn things over to the run. And that would lead to a lower scoring game in that one too. But that's something that I think is already reflected in the total. So, I don't think we're looking at a game like we saw with Detroit versus the Commanders last night, where we're looking at a potential 70 points or whatever. I think that this is going to be two lower scoring games. I think the wide receivers on both sides of this game are going to be, not the best positions to target. Whereas I think that, actually, I take that back. With the Philly game, on both sides of the Philly game, they're not really wide receivers to target. On the Buffalo-Baltimore game, though, think that it's going to be easier to target those Baltimore receivers. The problem is that they're spread all over the place. We don't know which receivers to target. We got Zay Flowers. He's still doubtful. I don't think he's going to be playing at this point. Let me take a look and see if there's been any updates on him on Twitter. Zay Flowers is going to be a big piece of this puzzle, because they're going to open the door for guys like Isaiah Likely. If he is out, they're going to need to throw to somebody, and Zay Flowers, he's still doubtful. I haven't heard any recent updates about it. So yeah, if we got Zay Flowers as doubtful still, that's going to leave things open for probably the tight ends more in this game. It's going to be a situation where Isaiah Likely was running most of his routes in the out wide last week, and his price is only $3,500. So it's like almost getting like a min price wide receiver in this one, who's going to potentially have the highest yardage total on the team. Last week he did that with 53 yards. They won against Pittsburgh handily, so they didn't really need to use Likely. But in the limited time that they did, he had four targets. I believe it was a 20% target share. So Isaiah Likely was set up nicely to have a big game last week without Zay Flowers. I think he's in the same spot this week. And Buffalo is a team. If we use the wideout, like scoring, DraftKings scoring against Baltimore, they've scored 24.7 DraftKings points a game to wideouts, and it is 16.1 DraftKings points a game to the slot. So, vulnerable against both types of receivers is Buffalo. So that's going to set up Baltimore's receivers. Like I said, the problem is we don't know which ones. Baltimore's running game is also going to benefit in this matchup. We're looking at 25.9 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. So that's obviously good for Derrick Henry and potentially Justice Hill. As far as Buffalo's side, Baltimore has been weakest against the quarterback. They're giving up 19.8 DraftKings points a game. We were also targeting Baltimore heavily versus wide receivers earlier in the season, but they fixed that. They went from one of the worst teams. Now they're only allowing 14.2 and 11.3 to wideouts and slots, but they've been more vulnerable to tight ends. They've been middling against tight ends, and they've been middling against running backs, even though they're probably one of the better run defenses in the league. They're allowing 20.4 DraftKings points a game to the running backs. So, like these Baltimore receivers is where we're going to, potentially find our sweet spot this week for the receiving options. And it's going to be a matter of figuring out which one of those guys that we want to target, and that's going to be the tricky part. So let's take a look at it from a two-game slate perspective first. If we're looking at the overall slate here, from a quarterback perspective, I think I would probably rank it probably Josh Allen, just because I think that the run game is going to be used pretty heavily for the Baltimore game. Maybe Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, and then Matthew Stafford. From a value perspective, looking at 5,200 for for Stafford and 6,800 for Hurts. Those guys are significantly cheaper than this other game, and the matchups are not that much better in this other game, or the quarterback situations in that other game. Like Hurts could outscore Allen or Jackson depending on the game flow of that game. Stafford could outscore these guys. We're not looking at great matchups for anyone this week. So it's going to be one of those situations where we might want to just start the lowest owned guy, but I would add a corollary to that and say the lowest owned running quarterback, because that's going to be Jalen Hurts at 22% ownership. Matthew Stafford does not have the rushing upside, and if he puts up a dud, then even one of his better games, he could put up 18 DraftKings points, and Hurts could put up a dud and still score like 25 DraftKings points. So we got to be conscious of that when we're choosing our quarterback. We've seen it with Hurts last few weeks, 16.8 last week against Green Bay. He got hurt in that Washington game, so he only had 5 DraftKings points. Prior to that, 29, 24, 17, 15, 18, 31, and then 29, a bunch of 30-point games, basically. So if we're looking at a quarterback to start this week, even though I have Hurts ranked as my number 3, he's $6,800. So let's go ahead and plug him in. If I got Hurts, I don't want Barkley in my lineup. So let's go over here and look at Henry. Let's get Henry in there. I think Henry's going to make a pretty obvious play there. If I'm using Hurts, I'm assuming that maybe we're getting a fight from the Rams side. So let's go with Nakua, and let's go with Brown, because I want to stack Hurts with at least one of his pass catchers. And honestly, let's put Goddard in there too, just knowing Goddard has a good matchup as well. So we're looking at basically a Philly Rams stack here, anticipating the Rams to be a little bit more competitive in this one. If we're looking at defenses, let's go ahead and plug in the Ravens in this one. Let's assume that Josh Allen has one of his performances where he does not do great against the Ravens. Let's go over to the running back position and fill out our other spot here. I want to put Kyron Williams in because he's a cheap, expensive guy. It's going to leave us with 3,500 per guy. I talked about likely how he would be probably the best receiving option on the Ravens. Let's put him in there at 3,500. He's cheap. This will leave us with 3,600 for our last spot. So let's go ahead and look at wide receivers for 3,600, and then we can adjust if we need to. Mac Hollins and Curtis Samuel are both interesting in that price range. If we're thinking that the Bills going to spread the ball out like they normally do, it's not going to really give us any value for any of these players like we would normally see, like a team have in a matchup like this. Let's look at the Ravens. Let's check out the Ravens receivers, see what kind of cheap receivers we can get there. Nelson Aguilar would be interesting. That's about it, honestly. The Ravens have been susceptible out wide, which makes me like Coleman. So if I can fit Coleman in here and drop down on my defense, still can't get there with my defense. So I got to find a way to come down on my cost here. So I'm gonna go switch out AJ Brown, who, he's been playing hurt, and I do think that Devontae Smith makes an interesting play. Let me see if I can find a nugget on Devontae Smith that might put me in his direction instead. All right, so this makes me like Devontae Smith. This is a nugget from Rich Rebar on Sharp Football Analysis. The Rams have allowed a 7.5 touchdown rate to slot receivers, which is 29th in the league. So, if we can sneak a touchdown out of Devontae Smith, that makes him very interesting in this game. Let me check and see if there's anything I need to know about Brown's matchup. All right, so Brown is favored more in man coverage. Yeah, he has a good target rate in both, but he's favored more in man coverage. And according to Rich Rebar, the Rams have allowed a 9.4 yards per target and 6% touchdown rate to wideouts. So, both these guys have good matchups. I think I'm going to lean towards Devontae Smith in order to get the rest of what I need in this lineup. That's going to set me up so that I can use, like the Eagles defense, Bills. I got my choice of defense basically going this route. If I wanted to, maybe I swap out Coleman to Amari Cooper, and still leaves us with our choice of defense. So I don't hate that route as a way to go. We got Jalen Hurts to Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. We got Eric Henry, and we got Kyren Williams. We got Puka Nacua we're running it back with. So we're going heavily on this Eagles game as opposed to the other game. But everyone thinks that other game is going to shoot out. I just don't think it's really set up for a shootout necessarily, or for a high-scoring game. I think that it's a rematch. Those teams are familiar with each other. Like they're going to be, the defense is going to show up in this game for both those teams, and both those defenses have the potential to be good. I just do not think that it's a game that's conducive to a higher scoring game. And I think that is going to be overlooked by the field, which is going to give us opportunity here with targeting the other game as our shootout potential. So that's one way to go with this 2-game slate. If you do like that other game better, let's see what we can do here. Let's go with Jackson. No, let's go with Allen, because I think Ravens are more likely to be in control of this game with the run. So if we go with Allen, let's go with Barkley. I don't think we necessarily need Nacua in that situation. If I'm going with Allen, I want Shakir. So I'd have Shakir and I'd have Cooper. That gives me a slot receiver and that gives me a wide out. So I feel pretty comfortable having one slot receiver and one of those wideouts, either Cooper or Keon Coleman. And I got my guy in Likely still on the Baltimore side. I got my guy in Henry. On the Philly Rams game, I'm using Saquon Barkley. I'm using Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, which might be too many, but let's go ahead and put the Eagles defense in here. Let's take out Goddard. Can't get us to Andrews, so let's leave Goddard in there. If we wanted to take out Smith, we can't really get to anyone there because Say Flowers is doubtful. But you could go Kupp, you could go Bateman if you want to add another one of these Ravens guys in here. Let's see. I think Bate would be a good option. Obviously, looking at a team missing one of their wideouts or one of their receivers who plays a decent amount out wide in addition to the slot. So let's go ahead and add Bateman in there. As I said, the Bills have been allowing 24.7 DraftKings points a game to wideouts. So Bateman's going to have the good matchup. It's just a matter of how much volume he's going to get or how much we anticipate Lamar to throw in a potentially snowy game. But Bateman could go there. You could put Devontae Smith. That would be my preference. The only thing I don't like about Devontae is I feel like I got too many Eagles in this lineup now with Barkley, Smith, and Goddard. So, that makes me a little bit uncomfortable. If we wanted to, and Bateman, if we drop Smith down to, let's see here. I can't bump him up to Nakua. I don't really want to go Kupp, even though I know it's recency bias, but Kupp has just not been used in this offense, and I just don't trust him. But if you wanted to use Kupp, you could take Smith out there, use Kupp, and then potentially upgrade Goddard. No, you can't upgrade Goddard there. So you could go in that direction. You could use Kupp. I think I prefer Devontae Smith in this spot, and that's kind of a direction I would go if I was going to Josh Allen direction. Let's put that. Let's take Allen out and put Lamar Jackson in there. Same thing with Lamar Jackson. I think you can mix and match these guys. If you put Jackson in there, I'd switch out Smith for Bateman, and then put that Eagles D in there again. But that gives you an idea of direction that you can go there, and that is the 2-game slate. Let's go ahead and get into some showdown here. All right, so let's look at the showdown slates here. Going to look at the Rams versus Eagles first. Got a pretty good contest here, $400,000 showdown, $100K to first. So that's good. It makes it worth our while. It's $15 to enter. And in this one, Barkley's the obvious captain option. I think Goddard also makes an interest. I targeted Hawkinson last week as the captain against the Rams just due to the amount of targets that tight ends get against them. So let's go ahead and do the same with Goddard this week. Goddard had a nice game last week. That's going to enable us to get some studs in here because I want Barkley, I want Hurts, I want Nakua. Leaves me with 4,400. Let me see if I can find a cheap guy here. Let's put Smith in there. No, let's not put Smith. This is going to leave us down to trying to pick from these cheap guys. If I'm looking at this slate, as far as guys that are cheap that could pop off, let's take Nakua out. Let's put in Kyron Williams, and then let's try putting in Smith. That leaves us with 1,700. Don't really see anyone I like there either. Let's take out Hurts. Let's say that Stafford, we got them playing from ahead with Barkley and Goddard in there. Let's put in Stafford and let's put in Nakua. Leaves us with 2,500. And, it leaves us with an option like Tutu Atwell if we wanted to go there. But, I think a better way to go with this is probably I think they're going to run the ball a lot. And the Kobe Dean being out is going to lead to the Rams probably running the ball more. 3,300. At least we can get Dotson in there, Parkinson. But let's take out Smith. We got Goddard in there already. Let's put Hurts back in there because he obviously has the more upside. Let's go with the Eagles defense, which is priced up at 5,400. Leaves us with 4,300. Prices this out of our kickers, but that puts us in Robinson range. So at least we have Robinson as an option there. We're 100 shy of Higbee. So maybe we want to go back to Stafford. Let's put in Nakua. 5,100. That puts us in that kicker range. So we got Stafford to Nakua. We got Goddard in the captain. We got Barkley in there collecting his points. Eagles defense, and then that puts us in, Elliott and Cardi and Higbee range. So if you wanted to use one of those guys, I think that would make a lot of sense. I think Higbee would probably make the most sense because it's going to be difficult to kick in this one. But I would go with Elliott or Higbee in this one. So I think those would probably be my two favorite options that I think would correlate the best with this build. If we want to use Barkley in the captain, if we want to use Barkley, we're saying that Hurts is not going to have a huge game. Let's go with Devontae Smith. Let's go with Nakua playing from behind. And let's go with Stafford. Leaves us with 2,800. Very difficult to get Barkley in that captain spot. If we're scrolling down for value, I want to get Goddard in there. I already talked up Goddard, so let's get Goddard in there. It's going to make me take out Smith, I think. That at least leaves us with 3,900 per guy. If I wanted to go that route, I'd probably go with Elliott or Cardi. If we go with Elliott, that at least leaves us with Gainwell, Atwell, a few options there, Whittington. But yeah, it's going to be tough to do it with Barkley and the captain. But if you can figure out one of these cheap guys that could pop off, if the Eagles take a significant enough lead so that they're using Gainwell more towards the end of this game, I think Gainwell would make a lot of sense at 2,800. So I don't hate that. But you guys get the picture there. Let's say we want to do a Rams build. Let's say that Kyren Williams has a decent game in this one. What did Kyren do the last time they played against Philly? 12.2 DraftKings points. Let me see if I get an ownership projection on Kyren. All right, so if I'm looking at the Rams versus Eagles, as far as the captain ownership, Kyren is still over 10%, so I don't really like that. Goddard, I think Goddard is the play. Goddard, Devontae Smith. Those are going to be the plays in the captain today, I think. Even A.J. Brown, like, is cheaper than normal. If you think we see vintage Stafford, he's not gonna be, very owned in the captain spot. But I think realistically, let's do a Kyron build. Actually, no, let's do a, yeah, let's do a Kyron build. Let's go, Barkley in there too. And I think for Kyron to have success, you gotta have at least one of these receivers having success, and that's Nakua. Let's get Goddard in there. 4,100 per guy remaining. Yeah, this is a tough one. This is gonna be a tougher, one that we've seen in these divisional rounds so far. Let's go with Cardi. Leaves us with 3,400. You know, Dotson, Parkinson, Gainwell. Not a huge fan of that direction. I think Goddard, maybe Devontae Smith in the captain. If we go Smith, let's go Barkley. Let's go Hurts. Let's go with the defense. Let's just say that they're shutting them down. Let's put Goddard in there. Not going to go with the defense. Let's go with, if we put Kyron in there, only this is with 600. So it's, yeah, Goddard. I think that Goddard direction is the way to go. This one is going to be a little bit trickier. So I got to play around with it a little bit more. I don't like the pricing in that one, but let's check out this. Let's check out the other game. Baltimore, Buffalo. This one has a bigger prize pool. Looking at 250K to first. So this is one where, you know, like I think we see one of these tight ends. I had Likely recently in the captain spot, and he paid off for us. I think I'm going back to Likely in this one. I just think he's going to get more work this week than he did last week. Let's get Jackson. Let's get Allen in there. Let's get Henry in there. 3,700 per guy. Let's go down here. I like Justice Hill this week too, but I talked about how I like one of these wideouts to pop off. So let's get Coleman in there. It's going to leave us with 3,800. I could put the Ravens D in there, who I don't hate this week. Matt Collins, if we wanted to add another guy. Curtis Samuel had a big game last week. He hasn't been forgotten about. This one builds itself. Like, this one builds a lot easier than that last one. I do like the direction better here. If we think that Henry is going to get scripted out, let's go with Justice Hill instead. Let's say Henry is scripted out, so he can't pay off his salary. That leaves us with 10K. We can put in Cook or Shakir. I don't mind Shakir in this one. Let's put Shakir in the captain. And we can still get Likely in this one, which I like. If we wanted to swap out Coleman, can we do that? No, we're still stuck with Coleman. Can't get to Cooper in this one. But I do like the Allen to Shakir and have one of those wideouts. And then, you know, we're assuming that Baltimore is scripting out. They're scripting out Derrick Henry. So we got Jackson leaning more on guys like Justice Hill and Isaiah Likely. And I think that, you know, if we wanted to swap in Andrews instead, that leaves us with 3,400. That prices us out of Coleman, so I don't like that as much. So yeah, I think Likely would be the guy that I prefer there. But, you know, a couple options there for that Buffalo game. I think the Buffalo game is going to be less scoring than it should be. I think that the first game is, obviously where we're going to find our value. It's going to be, just a good slate in general as far as a football perspective, but don't be looking for shootouts, I don't think, today. And make sure to, to script accordingly. The wide receivers on the slate in general, I think, are going to be underperforming. I think the tight ends will be outperforming. I think the running backs will be outperforming. I think quarterbacks and the passing game will be down in this one. Even the running quarterbacks, like maybe we're looking at, 22 points as the high this week. And that could be Hurts, that could be Allen, that could be Jackson. It could go either way. I would tend to lean on the 2-game slate with Hurts over those other guys, just because Hurts is a forgotten man right now. And I think that Kyren Williams is going to have a better matchup than expected with Nakobe Dean out this week. So people are going to be trying to jam in Derrick Henry, and they're going to be trying to jam in Saquon Barkley. Use that to your advantage. Try to get Kyren Williams in a few of your lineups and work around that. And I think those are the main takeaways this week. So good luck, guys. I'll leave my favorite picks in the comment section. Make sure to hit that like button. Give me the 30 likes. Hit the subscribe button. Get me to 1,600 subscribers. I need 30 to get there. So get me there by the end of today. Thanks, guys.